I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm speaking with Robert Moniot, the director and writer and editor of the short film The Ice Cream Man, uh, as part of our Meet the Experts film shorts series. First question I wanted to ask you is how did you come across the story of Ernst Kahn, and what made you want to tell this story now?
So my wife is a United States diplomat, and we were working at the White House, and the State Department called and told us that we were going to be moving a year earlier than we thought we were going to be leaving to the Netherlands, and gave us the address of our new house. And I Googled the closest beach and saw this incredibly beautiful vista. Um, and as I was reading in the bottom right-hand corner, it said, "This is the beach where the Nazis executed over 300 resistance fighters during the war." And so instantly, as a filmmaker, I got this horrifically beautiful picture of a person on that beautiful beach with their hands tied behind their back and a blindfold on. And as I kept reading, I found the story of Ernst Kahn, who was a beloved owner of the biggest ice cream parlor in Amsterdam. He and his family had fled Nazi Germany in 36 because everyone assumed that the Netherlands would be neutral and would be safe for Jewish people. Um, and to his horror, Klaus Barbie, the future Butcher of Lyon, came to Amsterdam and targeted, arrested, tortured for 10 days, and then ultimately executed Ernst Kahn just to make an example out of him. He hadn't really done anything wrong, but when they came for him, he fought back. And the outpouring of anger from the community in Amsterdam was so great that it led to what is now known and commemorated every year in Amsterdam. It's called the February Strike, where over 300,000 people in 1941 went on strike and shut the Nazi war machine and the city down for 3 days. And I couldn't believe I'd never heard this story. When I finally did move to the Netherlands, I was surprised that even a lot of people in the Netherlands didn't know about Ernst Kahn. And this was in 22. And I really felt even back then that this kind of story of the impact that one person can have on their community was sorely, sorely needed to be told. And I really felt at that time that, especially for younger people, I felt that kids aren't getting basic civics classes anymore. And I really felt like I wanted to get that message out to them. So that's how I found it. And that's what made me want to do it.
I think you got you struck quite the mother lode in getting Noah Emmerich to play Ernst, and I was curious as to what made Noah the right person to portray him.
Ever since I had seen Noah as an actor, he was always that guy that just you instantly fell in love with him every single time, no matter the size of the role. There's just something about his character, his openness, his spirit that I felt really for this part would do a lot of the work for me. Because it's a short film, you don't have a lot of time for the audience to fall in love and care about the man. And like I said, every movie I'd ever seen Noah, even when he sometimes played bad guys, I always kind of just loved the man. So I was really grateful that he said yes when I asked him. And there was also a really personal connection to the film. When I called Noah and asked him to read the script, he said, "Oh, I'm really, really busy. It's going to take me a long time." I said, "That's fine. We've got time." And he called me back half an hour later, and he was very emotional. And he says, "Do you know about my dad?" And I go, "No." And Noah's father and aunt, with their parents, fled Nazi Germany in 1936 and moved to Amsterdam and lived right around the corner from the ice cream parlor. There's some evidence that they actually knew the Kahn family, and Noah's aunt was classmates with Anne Frank. So that began a series of miracles, on this film that kept happening. These just unbelievable coincidences and events that have really kind of like formed this entire production in so many ways.
On the flip side of that, you also, like you said, you have Klaus Barbie as a character in here, and I'm curious as to how did you go about casting a role as notorious as Klaus Barbie?
Um, so we ended up shooting the first half of the film and a great part of the film in Indianapolis, or rather in Indiana, in Columbus, Indiana. Um, we couldn't find an ice cream parlor anywhere in Europe that seemed right. And we were having trouble even finding some in Los Angeles or New York. And the one that I found in Columbus was just amazing. So Noah came on board early. So when it came to casting, we didn't have a ton of money. This was a not-for-profit endeavor, so we raised money the entire time. We'd raise some money, we'd shoot. We'd raise some money, we'd shoot. We'd raise some money, we'd shoot. Never make a movie that way, y'all. It's the worst idea ever. But it was also quite interesting, and so we cast regionally. And Nick, the gentleman that plays Klaus Barbie, Nick Pietsch, he was a regional actor, originally, I believe, from Cincinnati, but I think at the time was in Atlanta working. And we saw a lot of people from LA, a lot of people from New York on tape, but Nick just had that. If you read the Nuremberg accounts from survivors of Klaus Barbie's torture, they all said the same thing. He was an incredibly charming man. Under any other circumstances, they would have found him delightful. But he was also just a monster. One woman, he hit her so hard with a medieval flail that he broke her spine in two. But she talked about his thin smile, and she talked about how he complimented her for not speaking, not giving up names because she was a resistance fighter. We used part of that in the film. So Nick just had that equal mix of menace and frankly likability. We wanted to be careful to not make the film too much about Barbie, but at the same time, I wanted to try to instill some sense of what he really must have been like from all accounts.
Um, One of the interesting choices in this is the use of the song "We'll Meet Again," which I, of course, always associate with Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah,
And also Johnny Cash, because that's the last song on on the album he put out before he passed away.
right.
Um, I'm curious as to what made you choose the song "We'll Meet Again" as the song that continuously comes up and ends up being that like thread throughout the film.
So there are reports that Khan, as he was being executed, actually was singing. And the history doesn't tell us what he was singing. But I had a sense that given who he was and the choices that he made, that it must have been sort of an act of defiance for him to be singing. And as I was trying to figure out what might be the song that could both be melancholy but triumphant, my mom, who's British, my mom, said, "Oh well, it's got to be, this one." And I listened to it, and I knew she was right. And Vera Lynn recorded the song twice, once in 41, and then again I think in 43 or 44. Um, and the second one was more widely known and widely heard and more popular. But I thought it was interesting that they had that song that early in the war on the radio, so that you could imagine that Ernst would have heard that song, especially there's a lot of music in their house. And so yeah, I just felt like it really, when you get to the end of the movie, and he's about to be executed, I really felt like it was going to be incredibly poignant, especially since it's in so many ways a happy tune that you hear earlier in the film.
Have any members of the Khan family or his descendants seen the film? And if so, what has their reaction been to it?
So from the get-go, the night that I had the idea, I tried to start finding if the Khan family were alive, whether there were descendants, and it was almost like they didn't want to be found. And one of the amazing things that happened, it was one of the results of not having all of our money together right away. And so it was a blessing in disguise that we had to wait, because in the time that we were initially having to wait to raise money, and then the writers and actor strikes happened, we were delayed for so long that the Khan family finally found me. They found me on Facebook. They'd read a newspaper article that I'd given an interview for. And so the next day I'm on a Zoom call with like 50 people in Israel and Switzerland and other parts. They're all lovely. Nurit, and Amos, who are the grandchildren of Ernst Kahn, are now dear friends. They have not seen the movie yet because they wanted to wait and see it on the big screen. But Aura and Amos, Aura is Amos's wife. They're both in the movie with Amos's daughter and son-in-law in a really, really key scene. So it was an honor to have them on set. But the other thing that was amazing about getting to know them is they told us things that had happened in real life that aren't in the history books. For example, there's a scene in the film where Ernst is in prison the night before he's to be executed, and all of a sudden, Ursula, his wife, shows up. She's been allowed by Barbie to visit him the night before he's to be killed, which he doesn't know she's coming, and he's horrified when she gets there, terrified that she's been captured. That really happened. That's a true thing that actually happened. And when Noah and I found out from the Kahn family that this event had happened, we were like, okay, well, we have to write this in and shoot this scene. And another one of the extraordinary miracles that happened on this movie is the prison cell where we shot is the actual prison where Ernst Kahn was held. And the cell that we shot in, it's a national monument. No one's ever allowed to go inside there because they preserved it to be exactly as it was at the end of the war. But they let us shoot that scene on death row in that cell, which was six doors down from where Ernst Kahn was actually held.
Wow. Well, Robert, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our panel in just a little bit.